Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The elevator's ascent felt stifling, each second stretching endlessly as Flynn Bennett watched the numbered lights above the door. With every floor, the anticipation grew, and his anxiety mirrored the rising altitude. His fingers brushed against the damp fabric of his shirt, which clung to his skin. Flynn's fist tightened around his phone, the screen illuminating his anxious face as he obsessively confirmed the details, an address he knew all too well, branded in his mind. Suite 704. His therapy session with Dr. Reynolds loomed ahead, causing a familiar, tight feeling in his chest. The panic attacks had gotten worse, striking at random, during business meetings, at restaurants, even asleep in bed. The medications helped somewhat, but the side effects left him feeling hollow, disconnected from himself. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Flynn hesitated, his heart thundering against his ribs, before stepping into a softly lit hallway. The navy blue suit he wore, normally his armor in the corporate world, felt suffocating today. Suite 704 featured a simple frosted glass door with gold lettering. Flynn checked his watch, precisely on time, took a deep breath, and entered. The waiting room surprised him with its warmth. No sterile white walls or uncomfortable plastic chairs. Instead, soft earth tones, comfortable seating, and subtle lighting created an atmosphere that immediately lowered his shoulders a fraction. "Mr. Bennett?" A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a professional gray pantsuit appeared.
"I'm Dr. Reynolds. Please come in."
The office beyond matched the waiting room's comfort. Bookshelves lined one wall, while large windows offered a view of the city below. Flynn perched awkwardly on a leather armchair, hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Your primary physician sent over your file," Dr. Reynolds began, settling into her own chair across from him. "But I'd like to hear from you directly about what brings you here." Flynn cleared his throat. "The panic attacks are getting worse. I've tried 3 different medications. The current one takes the edge off, but I feel..." He searched for the right word. "Disconnected. Like I'm watching myself from outside my body." Dr. Reynolds nodded, making brief notes.
"How long have you experienced anxiety?"
"Always, I guess. But it wasn't debilitating until a couple years ago. Now it's affecting everything. My work, relationships. I had to leave a presentation last month because I couldn't breathe." For the next 40 minutes, Dr. Reynolds guided Flynn through his history, his symptoms, and previous treatments. Unlike other professionals he'd seen, she listened more than she spoke, occasionally asking questions that made him think differently about his experiences. "Flynn, I believe we might consider an unconventional approach in your case," she said, setting her notepad aside. "Your anxiety appears deeply connected to identity issues." "Identity issues?" The term confused him. "I know who I am." "Do you?" Her question wasn't challenging, but genuinely curious. "Throughout our conversation, you've described feeling like you're playing a role or wearing a mask. You mentioned feeling disconnected from yourself." Flynn shifted uncomfortably in the navy suit that suddenly felt even more constraining. "I specialize in identity-based therapeutic approaches," Dr. Reynolds continued. "One technique that has shown remarkable results for certain patients is what I call persona exploration therapy. It involves temporarily adopting alternative self-expressions to access suppressed aspects of personality." "You mean like role-playing?" Flynn's brow furrowed. "In a sense, but with deeper purpose." She leaned forward slightly. "Let me be direct. Have you ever considered that your anxiety might be connected to rigid gender expectations you've imposed on yourself?" The question hit like a physical blow. Flynn's heart rate spiked immediately. What? No, that's not. Dr. Reynolds raised a calming hand. Your reaction is informative. I'm not suggesting anything about your identity or orientation. I'm talking about the psychological constraints society places on masculine expression. Many men with severe anxiety find relief when they temporarily step outside those constraints. Flynn swallowed hard. What exactly are you suggesting? Crossdressing therapy. In a safe clinical environment, exploring how different forms of self-expression affect your anxiety levels. Her voice remained matter-of-fact, professional. It's not about sexuality or identity. It's about breaking patterns that lock you into cycles of anxiety. The silence stretched between them. Flynn stared at the carpet, his mind racing. The suggestion should have been outrageous, offensive even, yet something about it resonated in a way he couldn't articulate. I maintain a clinical wardrobe collection precisely for this purpose, Dr. Reynolds added. We would start gradually. The office environment remains completely private and professional. Flynn looked up, surprised to find his breathing had steadied. Has this worked for other patients? Yes, particularly those who, like you, describe feeling disconnected from themselves or trapped in rigid self-expectations. The process often reveals surprising insights. Another long silence followed. Flynn considered walking out, yet the persistent thought that nothing else had worked kept him seated. One session, he finally said. Just to see. Dr. Reynolds nodded. That's all I ask. Shall we schedule for next week? The following Tuesday, Flynn arrived at Suite 704 15 minutes early, having nearly canceled 3 times. He wore the same navy suit, his corporate uniform, clinging to its familiarity. Dr. Reynolds greeted him with the same professional warmth. How was your week? 2 panic attacks. One during a conference call, another at the grocery store. Flynn wiped his palms on his trousers. I almost didn't come today. But you did. That shows courage. She gestured toward a door at the side of her office. Shall we begin? Remember, this is entirely at your pace. The adjacent room resembled a small, comfortable dressing room with a privacy screen, mirror, and several clothes racks organized by type and color. I suggest starting with something simple, Dr. Reynolds said, selecting a hanger. Perhaps just a blouse. You can change behind the screen and wear it over your own clothes if that's more comfortable. She handed him a simple pink silk blouse with a modest neckline and long sleeves. Flynn took it, the material sliding coolly across his fingers. I'll be in my office. Take your time, she said, leaving him alone with his racing thoughts. Flynn stared at the garment for long minutes. This was ridiculous. He should leave. Yet the same instinct that had kept him from canceling held him in place. Nothing else had worked. His life was unraveling, thread by thread. With trembling hands, he removed his suit jacket and tie, unbuttoned his dress shirt, and slipped the blouse over his undershirt. The material whispered against his skin, impossibly light and cool. He avoided the mirror at first, focusing on fastening the small pearl buttons. When he finally looked up, the image startled him. The soft pink contrasted sharply with his usual monochrome wardrobe. It should have looked absurd on his frame, yet somehow didn't. More surprising was the expression on his face. Not disgust or embarrassment, but curiosity. And something else he couldn't immediately identify. Flynn? Dr. Reynolds called from the other room. Take all the time you need. I'm coming out, he responded, his voice steadier than expected. Dr. Reynolds showed no reaction to his appearance beyond professional interest. How does it feel? Physically, I mean. Flynn considered this. Light, cool against my skin, different. And emotionally? Embarrassed, uncomfortable. He paused, noticing something else. But also, I don't know. My heart isn't racing like I expected. She nodded. Would you be willing to try something more comprehensive? The therapeutic effect is often stronger with a complete change of presentation. Flynn hesitated, then nodded. What difference did it make at this point? Dr. Reynolds selected several items, including a black pencil skirt, skin-toned hosiery, and low-heeled black shoes that looked large enough for his feet.
These should fit. I'll leave you to change.
Alone again, Flynn stared at the assembled outfit. This was crossing a line he'd never imagined approaching. Yet the strange calm he'd felt with just the blouse pulled him forward, like discovering an unexpected path through a forest he'd been lost in for years. The skirt proved challenging with its zipper and unfamiliar shape, but he managed. The hosiery felt bizarre against his legs, yet not unpleasant. When fully dressed, he forced himself to look in the mirror. The reflection shocked him, not because he looked ridiculous, though the outfit certainly wasn't tailored for him, but because he didn't. The pink blouse softened his features. The skirt, while tight across his hips, gave his body a different silhouette that wasn't entirely unnatural. Most striking was his face. The perpetual tension that usually pulled at his features had eased. His jaw looked less clenched, his eyes wider, more present. When he emerged, Dr. Reynolds was again professionally neutral.
How do you feel now?
Flynn struggled to articulate the sensation. Like, I've taken off a backpack I didn't know I was wearing. He moved experimentally, feeling the unfamiliar swing of the skirt. My anxiety level is maybe a 2 instead of the usual 7 or 8. Interesting. Would you like to sit and discuss the experience, or would you prefer to change back? Flynn surprised himself by choosing to remain dressed as they talked. For the remainder of the session, they explored his immediate reactions, the childhood expectations about masculinity he'd internalized, and the constant pressure he felt to project a certain image. When the session ended, Flynn changed back into his suit, but the feeling of relief lingered even after the silky blouse was replaced by stiff cotton. Same time next week? Dr. Reynolds asked as he prepared to leave. Flynn nodded without hesitation. The weekly sessions took on a structure. Flynn would arrive, review his anxiety episodes from the previous week, then change into increasingly varied outfits from Dr. Reynolds' clinical collection. They would spend the remainder of each session discussing his reactions and insights, while he remained dressed in feminine attire. By the third session, Dr. Reynolds suggested adding subtle makeup to enhance the therapeutic effect. Flynn agreed with surprising readiness. Many patients report that the more complete the transformation, the more effective the anxiety relief. She explained, applying a light foundation that evened his complexion. The contrast between personas helps illuminate the self-imposed constraints that may be contributing to your anxiety. During the fourth session, as Flynn sat comfortably in a knee-length blue dress with 3/4 sleeves, Dr. Reynolds asked a question that shifted the trajectory of their work. Have you considered exploring this alternative presentation outside our sessions? Flynn's immediate response was alarm. You mean in public? No, absolutely not. Not necessarily in public, perhaps in the privacy of your home. The benefits you're experiencing here might extend to your daily life. Flynn considered this. His anxiety levels had decreased significantly. He'd gone 9 days without a panic attack, the longest stretch in years. I wouldn't know where to start, he admitted. I can't exactly shop for dresses at the mall. Online shopping offers privacy, and if you'd like, I can provide some basic items from our collection to begin with. Strictly as therapeutic tools, of course. That evening, Flynn left with a discreet bag containing the blue dress, undergarments, and the cosmetics they'd used that day. Dr. Reynolds also provided a list of websites specializing in clothing for people with his build. At home, Flynn placed the bag in his closet, convinced he wouldn't use the contents. Yet 3 nights later, after a stressful day that left him on the verge of a panic attack, he found himself reaching for the blue dress instead of his anxiety medication. The effect was similar to what he'd experienced in Dr. Reynolds' office. An almost immediate calming sensation as the soft fabric settled against his skin. He sat on his couch in the dress, breathing deeply, the tightness in his chest gradually unwinding. During their next session, Flynn reported this development. I've been wearing the dress at home 3 times now. It helps more than the medication. Dr. Reynolds nodded, unsurprised. Have you given any thought to how you'd like to refer to yourself when presenting this way? Some patients find a temporary name helpful for distinguishing between their everyday self and this therapeutic persona. Flynn hadn't considered this, but realized he'd been thinking of his feminine presentation as someone distinct from his daily self, someone calmer, more present, less burdened by expectations.
Delilah,
he said, the name emerging without conscious thought.
I think Delilah.
The name felt right on his lips. Feminine, but strong. Nothing like Flynn.
Delilah, then,
Dr. Reynolds acknowledged.
And would you prefer feminine pronouns when presenting as Delilah?
The question caught him off guard, but the answer came easily.
Yes, she, her, when I'm her.
That night, Flynn placed his first online order. 2 dresses, a skirt, blouses, and proper undergarments. When he filled out the shipping information, he hesitated at the name field, then typed Delilah Bennett. 6 weeks into therapy, Flynn's time as Delilah had expanded significantly. At home, he, or rather she, spent most evenings in feminine attire. The effect on his anxiety was remarkable. Panic attacks had become rare. He'd reduced his medication dosage with his physician's approval. Flynn's corporate life continued unchanged, though colleagues remarked on his improved focus and calmer demeanor. No one knew that after work, Flynn would transform into Delilah, whose growing wardrobe now occupied half his closet. During their 10th session, as Delilah sat comfortably in a floral dress with a cardigan, legs crossed naturally at the ankles, Dr. Reynolds raised a new question. You've made extraordinary progress. Your anxiety symptoms have reduced by approximately 70% according to your self-assessments. I'm curious about your thoughts regarding the future of your dual expression. Delilah, for she was fully Delilah in that moment, considered this. I'm not sure what you mean. Some patients find that this type of therapy serves as a temporary bridge, a way to access parts of themselves they've suppressed, which they then integrate into their primary identity. Others discover that the alternative self-expression is actually more authentic and choose to expand its role in their lives. Delilah's heart quickened. You mean becoming Delilah more permanently? I don't suggest any particular direction, Dr. Reynolds clarified. I'm simply asking you to consider what feels most authentic and beneficial for your long-term well-being. That evening, Delilah stood before the mirror in her apartment longer than usual. The auburn hair she'd ordered, high-quality, natural-looking, framed her face softly. At first, she'd considered it just another accessory, but now she wore it whenever she was home. The question of authenticity haunted her. When was she play-acting? As Flynn in the Navy suit, performing masculinity with its constant tension, or as Delilah, who breathed easier, smiled more readily, and hadn't had a panic attack in nearly 3 weeks. The following day at work, Flynn felt the familiar constriction returning, the tightness in his chest, the sense of performing rather than living. In a bathroom stall, he closed his eyes and imagined being Delilah, conjuring the feeling of the floral dress against his skin. The panic subsided, but the incident left him shaken. That night, Flynn made a decision. He would not change back into masculine clothes after work. Instead, Delilah would remain present through the evening and into the following morning. A test, she told herself, just to see. One day became 2, then a weekend. Flynn emerged only for a Monday morning meeting, then retreated as Delilah took over the apartment again. The pattern continued for weeks, with Flynn's appearances growing shorter, confined to necessary professional engagements. During their weekly sessions, Dr. Reynolds observed these changes without judgment, asking only how each choice affected Delilah's anxiety levels and sense of authenticity. "I've been considering working remotely more often," Delilah admitted during their 16th session. She wore a green wrap dress that complemented her auburn hair. "My company allows it. I could be myself more of the time." Dr. Reynolds nodded. "And how would that feel?" "Like freedom," Delilah whispered. "Like finally being able to breathe." The logistics proved simpler than expected. Flynn's company readily approved his request for a primarily remote position, requiring in-office presence only 2 days monthly for essential meetings. His efficiency had improved so dramatically in recent months that his supervisor considered it a reasonable accommodation. At home, Flynn's clothes migrated to storage boxes, while Delilah's expanded to fill the closet. Her auburn hair, once a temporary accessory, became a constant companion. She researched proper care for it, learning to style it in ways that framed her increasingly feminine features, achieved through subtle makeup techniques she'd mastered from online tutorials. Online shopping expanded to include jewelry, shoes, and more varied outfits. Delilah discovered preferences she never knew she had: a fondness for wrap dresses, an aversion to anything too revealing, a delight in delicate earrings that drew attention to her face. During the mandatory office days, Flynn made brief appearances, but colleagues noticed changes: longer hair tucked behind ears, smoother skin, a softer cadence to his speech. Most attributed it to his improved mental health, which wasn't entirely wrong. 6 months into therapy, Delilah arrived at Dr. Reynolds' office in a teal dress with a matching cardigan, her auburn hair styled in loose waves that brushed her shoulders. Natural-looking makeup enhanced rather than masked her features. Nothing about her appearance suggested a temporary persona. "I've made a decision," she announced after settling into the familiar armchair. "I want to transition fully, not just privately, but in all aspects of my life." Dr. Reynolds regarded her thoughtfully. "This is a significant step. What led you to this conclusion?" "Flynn was the costume," Delilah explained, the realization crystallizing as she spoke. "Every moment as him felt like holding my breath. Every day as Delilah feels like finally exhaling. The anxiety that plagued Flynn simply doesn't exist for me. I haven't had a panic attack in months." "Social transition involves many considerations," Dr. Reynolds noted. "Family, friends, workplace, legal documents. Have you thought about these aspects?" Delilah nodded. "I've researched extensively. My parents passed years ago, and I'm not close with extended family. My friends are mostly professional contacts. The workplace has policies supporting transition. As for legal matters, I've looked into the process for name and gender marker changes." And you're certain this is what you want? I've never been more certain of anything. Delilah's voice carried conviction. Flynn was dying from the effort of existing. I'm thriving. Dr. Reynolds smiled warmly. Then I fully support your decision.
Let's discuss resources to assist with your transition.
The meeting shifted from therapy to practical planning. Dr. Reynolds provided referrals to medical professionals specializing in transgender healthcare, support groups, and legal advisors for document changes. They developed a timeline and strategy for Delilah's workplace transition. As the session concluded, Delilah felt a profound sense of alignment, mind and presentation finally in harmony after years of discord. The formal transition unfolded over the following months. Delilah approached her supervisor first, then worked with HR to announce her transition to colleagues. The response proved largely supportive, with only minor awkwardness that dissipated as her confidence grew. She began hormone therapy under medical supervision, embracing the subtle changes to her skin and emotional landscape. Her auburn hair, once supplemented, now grew naturally, reaching past her shoulders with a warmth that complemented her complexion. Legal documents followed. First, her name changed to Delilah Bennett, then her gender marker. Each updated document felt like shedding another layer of the costume she'd worn for 30 years. Dr. Reynolds continued as her therapist, though their sessions decreased in frequency as Delilah's anxiety remained at bay. They now focused on integration and future growth rather than crisis management. 1 year after their first session, Delilah arrived for what would be their final regular appointment. She wore a burgundy dress that highlighted her increasingly feminine figure, her auburn hair styled in a simple braid. How would you assess your anxiety levels now? Dr. Reynolds asked as they began. Delilah smiled. Practically non-existent. I haven't had a panic attack in over 8 months. The background anxiety that was once constant white noise has faded to occasional whispers. And your sense of authenticity? Complete? Delilah gestured to herself. This isn't a therapeutic tool anymore. It's simply who I am, who I always was, beneath the fear. Dr. Reynolds nodded, genuine pleasure in her expression. Your journey has been remarkable. When you first came to my office, you could barely breathe through your panic. Now, you radiate calm and presence. I never imagined that first day, when you suggested I try on that pink blouse, that it would lead here. Delilah laughed softly. I thought you were slightly mad, honestly. Unconventional approaches sometimes yield the most profound results. You had the courage to follow an unexpected path. As their final session concluded, Delilah embraced Dr. Reynolds briefly, a departure from their usually professional interaction. Thank you for helping me find myself, she said. You did the finding, Dr. Reynolds countered. I merely provided a safe space for the exploration. Delilah stepped out of Suite 704 for the last time as a regular patient, her auburn hair catching the afternoon light. The elevator that had once been a chamber of panic now felt simply like a conveyance, carrying her down to the street where her life, her authentic life, continued. The navy suit remained in storage, a relic of a person who had never truly existed. In its place hung dresses, blouses, and skirts in colors that brought Delilah joy. The medication bottles that had once lined her bathroom shelf had been replaced by makeup and hair products. Most significantly, the ever-present weight of performance had lifted. Delilah moved through the world as herself. Not perfect, still learning, occasionally struggling, but fundamentally whole in a way Flynn had never been. That evening, as she prepared for a dinner with friends from her support group, Delilah caught her reflection in the mirror. The auburn-haired woman who gazed back wore a simple green dress and a natural smile. No mask, no performance, no desperate effort to be someone she wasn't. Just Delilah, finally at peace, breathing easily in her own skin.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!